Hi, I'm Rick Wilson. I'm the director of the International Human Rights Law Clinic here at American. This is one of the oldest human rights clinics in the United States. We started our work in 1990, so we've been operating for more than 20 years. And I'd like to talk to you a little today about the kind of work that we do and the kind of work that you would be doing as a student involved in the clinic. I want to start with a case that I think is typical of the cases that we work on, and that is a very recent case. That just in December of this past year, just last month, we received a decision from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights in a case that has been handled by numerous student teams over the years, involving a complaint against the government of Panama for its treatment of two indigenous groups in the area of Panama that approaches the Darien Jungle, which is just on the other side of the Colombian border, and the only area where the Pan American Highway has not penetrated the jungle. So it's the only incomplete section of the Pan American Highway from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, and so it's pretty rustic country jungle. These two tribes have lived in that area for years and years, centuries, traditional peoples, and the government of Panama many years ago in the 80s built a hydroelectric dam called the Bayano Dam, from which this case takes its name, that was constructed in the tribal area. And it had two disastrous effects for those tribes. First of all, it displaced the tribes because the water backing up from the dam flooded their ancestral lands. They were promised by the Panamanian government, which was a military government at the time, not an elected democratic government, that they would be paid for their losses and that they would be given comparable land in another part of the area. The government never lived up to that promise. Secondly, it had effects because the road that was constructed to the dam area also ran through the tribal areas, and settlers began to come from other parts of Panama because this was an area of the country that had not been settled, and they would carve out sections of the jungle along the road to construct their homes, plant crops, and basically move in uninvited. The tribes again complained to the government that this was not something they had bargained for, and that the government had a responsibility to keep people away from their ancestral lands. The conflict got to the point where there were physical fights between settlers and the indigenous people, and at long last we came into the picture some years ago involved in this case. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights decided in December that Panama had violated the rights of these tribal peoples. We were quite happy with the outcome of the decision, and it looks likely that this case will move from the Inter-American Commission, which sits here in Washington, D.C., is very convenient for us and our work, to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which sits down in San Jose, Costa Rica. Now, we've done a number of cases at the court over the years, the most recent one involving a human rights activist in Haiti. That case, unfortunately for our clinic, was not one in which the court heard witnesses or oral argument. They decided the case on the papers. So we didn't have an opportunity to have students go to Costa Rica to help present the case. But we're optimistic that this case involving Panama and indigenous peoples will go to the court and that it will get a full hearing. Students have been involved in this case to the extent that they have had ongoing communication with the tribes, over the years increasingly sophisticated by email, then Skype and other ways. And then we've also visited the tribal areas on a number of occasions to meet with the clients and try to understand their own very sophisticated and very ancient decision-making processes that involve chiefs and their collective decision-making process about what they consider to be collective rights. So this case, to my way of thinking, is important in at least 3 different dimensions for the work that we do. First of all, as I just mentioned, it involves not just individual human rights, but collective human rights. Secondly, it involves the rights of traditional peoples, indigenous peoples, a group that is of individuals that are under threat by the advancing civilizations around the world, the subject of some controversies about human rights relativism and the idea that the traditional group should accept modern ideas and move themselves into modern culture. And we are not necessarily in agreement with that view. So protecting the cultures of the indigenous peoples of the world, and particularly this group in Panama, is something that we have fought for. And third, I might mention that these groups oftentimes, their claims come not only with regard to what we would recognize in the United States as claims about property rights, that is their land and the land they've been displaced from, and maybe the demarcation of their tribal lands as a matter of domestic law, but also very complex environmental questions. That is, the flooding of the lands by the government results in damage to the ecosystem, damage to hunting, damage to the plant life, and other kinds of damages. So we have explored each one of those dimensions as we've gone forward with these cases. One of the most typical things that our students grapple with, that many students don't have the opportunity to grapple with in our clinical program, is this issue of cross-cultural encounters. Almost all of our clients are from another country. They may speak another language. They may require interpretation, and that interpretation may go beyond language to interpretation of issues about culture, values, and other dimensions that we oftentimes don't think about as lawyers. As human rights lawyers, I think it is our responsibility to think about it and talk about it and prepare for the possibility that we're going to find those kinds of issues in human rights practice. And I think our students have traditionally been extremely well equipped to deal with these issues, because many of our own students come from diverse cultural backgrounds, diverse racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and they bring that experience and their wealth of prior work to the clinical work that they do with us. And we would look forward to continuing that tradition as we move forward. So we will do work on a range of cases. If you're thinking about applying to the International Human Rights Law Clinic, you're eligible to apply if you are either a second-year student or a third-year student. And it's the kind of work that you would do if you're selected to participate would include the kinds of cases that I've just described, the cases in the Inter-American system, and we've done more than 20, maybe 30 some cases at the Inter-American system, including cases against the United States. It is my own view, and I think the view of many of us here on the faculty, that human rights violations should be seen as something that don't just happen over there in some foreign country, but that happen right here in the United States. So we've challenged practices in the United States like the death penalty, which is widely practiced in many of the states of the United States. issues about the use of the so-called supermax prison, which results in complete isolation and solitary confinement, which can, in our view, constitute cruel treatment or torture in some circumstances. So those are typical of issues we might bring that involve the United States as well. And the second large constellation of our cases is not the cases that involve foreign governments and claims against states, but claims by individuals who are seeking asylum in the United States. Asylum meaning the status of a refugee, a person who has fled their home country, and they have done so because they are being persecuted, that is, they're a victim of human rights violations that arise usually on account of their political opinions, but sometimes because of their religious views, their particular orientation, and we've had a number of cases that have involved issues about sexual orientation, issues that have involved sexual violence against women, and many other issues. Domestic violence is one of the most serious issues faced by women who are fleeing their home countries, and is still a controversial issue in the United States, but one that we have taken on quite aggressively and supported arguments that women should be entitled to asylum based on claims that arise from domestic violence with a partner who is abusive in the context of the home, whereas many asylum cases arise from government misconduct. So these are typical of our cases. I would say that does not include all of the kinds of cases that we do. We have a group of other cases that have been involved with issues like national security. So we've represented detainees at Guantanamo Bay, and we have not been able to have students travel to Guantanamo Bay, but we've had students very closely involved in that litigation, and we will be on the watch for cases that involve questions of whether or not individuals might be suspect for terrorism when that suspicion is not grounded in reality, and other potential frontier issues of human rights. We have, I think, enjoyed the benefits of being based in an academic institution where we have pretty much free rein to pursue the kinds of cases that we believe students can handle in a context of direct client representation, which, if you have visited our program or listened to other videos about our clinics, you know that one of our mantras here is that we want students to be the lawyer. So our expectation is that once the cases are assigned to students, it is up to you to make the decisions about what will happen with your clients and their futures. And we want you to feel that responsibility that a lawyer has. That doesn't mean we let you do it alone. Well, we supervise this work very closely. So most of our students are with us for the full academic year, and my best guess at this point is that during the academic year of 2012-13, we will be, or 13-14, I'm sorry, we will be looking at the possibility of having about 16 students, and that will be a full year experience for all the students who are involved. So that is the general picture of what we look forward to for this coming academic year. And I hope if you have other questions, you'll feel free to contact us here in the clinic, and we'll be giving more information about applying to the clinical program as the semester moves on. Thank you very much.